Dober fantasy players and fantasy football fans. Let's take a look at 5 NFL running backs that could be the top fantasy sleepers and beat their Dober projected fantasy point totals in Week 15 of the 2017 NFL regular season. Peyton Barber only touched the ball 13 times last week, but if he gets 13 touches again this week, there's a good chance he'll beat his projected fantasy points total. Doug Martin was stuck on the bench after a fumble last week against Detroit, and that left the Tampa Bay backfield solely to Barber. Barber is not explosive and won't rip off any of those 60-yard runs, but against a projected fantasy point total of just 5.5, he doesn't have to. Mike Tolbert would have beaten his projected fantasy points total last week in the snow against Indianapolis if not for an uncharacteristic fumble. We're going back to the well this week with Tolbert after LeSean McCoy had the ball in his hands 32 times just 7 days ago. At some point, the 29-year-old McCoy is going to have to take a step back, and this is a good spot for him to do so against Miami. Tolbert is splitting reserve carries with Travaris Cadet, but there is room for both backups to beat low projected fantasy point totals in Week 15. It's a little risky putting Andre Ellington on our Dober play card in Week 15, but the Texans are almost certainly going to be playing from behind the whole way at Jacksonville. Lamar Miller is going to get plenty of action with TJ Yates under center, but Ellington has emerged as the passing down back for this team. It's going to take at least 3 or 4 receptions to get Ellington to his projected fantasy points total, but Yates can't possibly have much command of this offense, having been in Houston for just a handful of weeks. The easy pass is going to be the best route for him to take, and Ellington should be the beneficiary. We're not huge fans of Kerwin Williams in general, but he's the lone horse in an Arizona backfield that doesn't have any better options. Since Adrian Peterson's neck injury, Williams has run the ball 36 times for 169 yards in 2 games. He is not a threat as a receiver out of the backfield, but getting to 15-plus carries for a 3rd consecutive game should be enough to get him to a relatively low projected fantasy points total. If we go under the assumption that the Jaguars are going to blow the Texans out on Sunday, running backs aside from Leonard Fournette will be able to rack up Dober fantasy points. Fournette is an obvious play on Dober play cards, but the deeper sleeper here is Chris Ivory. Ivory hasn't touched the ball more than 6 times in a game since November 5th, but we're banking on him being a lot more involved in this game. Jacksonville has started to split this backfield 3 ways, with Fournette, Ivory, and TJ Yeldon, but when blowout games need to be salted away, Ivory strikes us as the back that is going to get the extra work.